Scott.
Oh, okay, well, that'll be good. All right.
I hope Maddie answers this phone. You should. I tried to get him yesterday to do a thing with KCBS. He didn't even return my text, but I just think that's how guys are, you know.
But you did get him on the phone before.
Oh, yeah. Well, we texted back and forth. Yeah.
So I have just this number, not the other one.
Yeah, okay. This is his landline, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I got the other one too. In case he doesn't.
Hi, is this Matt? Hey, Matt, it's Edward Brown and Bruce McGowan. How are you?
Good, how's it going?
Very good. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, no worries.
All right.
Hey, how you doing, man? You're in your office, huh?
Yeah.
All right. Now, you have an office that you're down in Arizona right now still? Or
Scottsdale.
Are you're going to be moving up here sort of temporarily and keeping your place down there, obviously, because you've been down there so many years?
Yeah, I've been here 30 years.
Wow.
Oh my gosh, is that long?
Well, because he started with the Giants in spring
Yeah.
training, and then yeah.
Geez, I'm getting old.
Yeah. Well, let's why don't we take our introduction later? We'll get right into it, Matty.
Okay,
Have a
ready?
good time.
Here we go.
Cool.
All right. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Again, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Bruce McGowan. Bruce, who's on the phone?
Great pleasure to welcome a 5-time All-Star, 4-time Gold Glover, former National League Manager of the Year, and now he's going to be the third base coach of our Oakland A's, Matt Williams, who I've known off and on for many, many years. And Matt, so happy to have you with us. And we gotta talk about a bunch of things. But the one thing I gotta mention here, Matt is from a little town called Bishop, California. And Matt, I never told you this story, but when I was a kid, my parents and I, we used to go backpacking in the Sierras, and we'd always stay in Bishop. That was kind of our place to stay before we, took off into the mountains. And I always loved that little town. What was that like growing up there? Because you spent a good deal of years.
Well, tell the audience where that is.
Bishop, California is on the other side of the Sierra Nevada. It's in the high desert. It's right at the base of the Sierra Nevada. It's a beautiful little area. What was that like growing up there, Matty?
Actually, Bishop is kind of the main town, and then 15 miles south of that is Big Pine, California.
Oh, yeah.
So we actually lived in Big Pine, which is population, I don't know, 900 or so.
Oh, wow.
And so it was great. You have everything you could possibly want as a kid, for sure. But on the eastern slope of the Sierra, beautiful country, crisp, clean water, lots of fishing and hunting and things to do. So what a childhood. It was a lot of fun.
And what was the elevation there?
It's about 5,000 feet at the base.
Okay.
So, you get, winters are difficult, lots of snow, but summers are beautiful, and it's just a fantastic area. I know a lot of people from Southern California come to that area to summer and to get away from the rat race, if you will. That's the time in the mountains, that's for sure.
I'm just thinking that, being up in that elevation, when you come back to a little bit closer to sea level, probably just run for miles, can't you?
Yeah. I used to be able to, not anymore. It's amazing what happens,
Yeah, you obviously started playing baseball there. They had a good little Little League program back in the day, back in the 70s when you were a kid growing up.
Yeah, my grandfather actually started the program in Big Pine. He played for the Dodgers.
Ooh.
Played for the Washington Senators. The last time, 1924, when they last won their World Series.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I was just looking that up. He played for the Brooklyn Robins.
I did not know this. Maddie, what was the fellow's name?
Bert Griffin.
Oh my gosh.
So he started the program there.
Wow.
So his little ballpark still stands. I was a little leaguer there, played in the Big Pine Jets. That was the start, for sure.
That is great. I got to meet Matty first when he was a rookie in 1987, which was a magical year for the San Francisco Giants. They had not won a divisional title in 16 years, and Matt was just a part-time player at that time, but he was surrounded by all these kind of larger-than-life characters: Hackman, Leonard, Shelley Davis, Bob Bradley, Jack. Well, not Jack, but Will Clark, young Will Clark.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, Jack was a little early. Jack was in the 70s. What was it like being around those guys, Matty, the first time you came up? And Roger Craig was your manager, so it was really quite an introduction in the major leagues in 1987.
I got drafted in '86 out of UNLV, and as part of my contract, initially I got an invite to Major League Spring Training. So, walking into that to Scottsdale Stadium with all of those guys was a little bit intimidating, to say the least. And So, I'm trying to keep my head down, make sure I'm listening to Roger and the coaches and doing everything I was supposed to do, making sure that as much as I possibly could. And then over walks this large man with a box, and it was Hackman, and he had put together a care package for me with batting gloves and wristbands, and so I was one of the fortunate ones that got to wear Hackman wristbands.
Oh my gosh!
When we played spring training.
No, I got to mention Hackman, for those that don't know, is Jeffrey Leonard, who was probably one of the meanest looking guys. He was from the inner city in Philadelphia, and he always lets you know it. He'd wear his hat backwards, and I went up to him the first time to ask him for an interview. He goes, "What do you want?"
One flap down.
Yeah. Right? Well, he said, "What do you want?" I'll talk to you later. But he really had a heart of gold, didn't he?
Oh yeah, the persona was completely different than the man.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's a sweetheart. So yeah, so he brought me the care package, and off I went. I was part of the team at that point.
Wow.
This is still a sore spot for me as a fan, and I can only imagine what it was like for you. 1994. Is it okay to talk about that?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. For those who don't remember, that was the strike year, and Matt was on kind of a tear, potentially going to break back then Roger Maris's record, and it just killed me. I wasn't the only sports fan who I've always just loved baseball, and it really took the wind out of my sails for at least 2 years.
Yeah, but it's difficult because. You fight for rights, and you fight for a better way, and a union and being part of that union was important to all of us. And unfortunately, there couldn't be an agreement that was reached. So am I upset about not chasing a record? No, I really don't care about it. What I was part of was arguably the strongest union in the United States for sure. And so we had a vision and a mission, and making sure that we're taking care of the folks that came behind us, just like the guys that came before us did. So yeah, but I made it. I don't know. There's a bunch of guys that were creeping up on me too. So. But hey, I got a chance to play Major League Baseball, and I'm perfectly happy with that.
Yeah, I guess during the season, your body kind of wears down a little bit. You always see these guys getting really tired towards the end, and so you don't really know what would have happened. But it was definitely a fun season to watch. So what is it like to now be a third base coach? At one point you were a first base coach, then you were also a manager, and now you're third base coach. It's like, what are the differences like between being a first base coach and a third base coach?
Well, my initial coaching entree in the big leagues was at first base, and what goes along with that is also another element, whatever your expertise is. So I was also the infield instructor, so at the major league level. Then I went from there and moved over to third base, and I've coached third base for this will be the 5th year. That I've done it with different organizations, but with the Diamondbacks especially. So you're kind of the guy that is the right-hand man of the manager when your team is on offense. So I get the signs up when I put a play on. I'm kind of the traffic cop out there that that lets them know where the ball's at as they're running bases. What's happening behind them as they turn second, come to third, and then letting them know if we feel like we can score a run on a base hit to the outfield or a ball in the infield. So you're just kind of, being the third base coach, you're just kind of the guy that directs the traffic.
Kind of, as you mentioned, the traffic cop, and we're talking to Matt Williams, by the way, if you just tuned in. Matt is, of course, a 5-time All-Star, 4-time Gold Glover, played with Cleveland and the Arizona Diamondbacks, and of course started his career with the Giants. And I got to tell another quick story, and I want Matt to follow up on it. When the Giants came into, do we have time to do this? Let's take a quick break. Should we do that? Are we up against it here?
Yeah, we're kind of. Well, we have a minute and a half.
Okay, all right. Well, this shouldn't take long. So, Matt, when you were traded away to Cleveland, the Giants were in desperate straits. They were kind of struggling, and they needed to revitalize themselves. And that was Brian Sabian's first big trade. And I was working at the flagship station, and the Giants, all the hosts were just apoplectic with rage. How could they trade Matt Williams away? Brian Sabian had to come to our station and defend himself and say, I'm not an idiot. But it turned out to be a great trade for everybody. You got to play in the World Series that year with Cleveland. That was pretty nice.
Yeah, it was great. It was great for the Giants. I mean, in return, they got Jeff Kent, who was a fantastic player, and really added to Barry. In the middle of that lineup, and the Giants moved in a positive direction from then on. Brian had a decision to make. You've got two guys. Who do you trade? You trade Bonds, you trade Williams. Well, he's not stupid. So you trade the Williams kid away. Had a chance to go to Cleveland for that 1 year and be part of a World Series team, and we ended up losing it, but nonetheless, a fantastic experience playing in the American League.
Matt, again, we do have to cut to a quick break. I love your humble spirit. Stay with us for one more quick segment, if you could. All right. So here's with the trivia questions again have to do with football players in the movie The Longest Yard. So Matt, if you know this question, you got to wait till after we come back. You can answer it. All right. What middle linebacker put his head through the wall in the movie The Longest Yard just before the big game? All right. That's our question. Don't touch that dial. Sports Econ 101. I'll be right back.
Is that the original Longest Yard?
Yeah.
I think there was a remake.
There was. Actually, Adam Sandler did not a bad job.
How's the weather down there in Arizona today, man? It's probably pretty nice, huh?
Nice and hot. It's like almost 90 degrees.
Well, it's about 67 here in the Bay Area. So
my old business associate moved to Phoenix.
Oh, did he?
Closer to his daughter. And
well, you're used to the high desert, so it's the climate down there must be to your liking, I would think, man.
Yeah, you're a product of your environment, right?
Yeah.
So for all those years, it's a nice place to be in the wintertime when you're training to get ready for spring training.
Hey, how much did you seem to be a natural on the TV thing, and yet you're kind of a humble, reticent guy, but you seem to really enjoy mixing with the guys doing the Giants pre and post. Was that fun for you?
I was great to Mark Grace's company for a number of years.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Okay.
He would do the broadcast here on Brenneman and Darren Sutton.
Oh.
He had the gig as well.
Okay.
I would do the color.
Oh, that is so cool. So yeah, Grace is still down there too now?
Grace is still down there. He's doing pre and post for the Diamondbacks.
Wow.
So I've got some experience doing it. I enjoy it because you get to talk about the game.
Yeah, cool. All right,
here we go.
Here we go.
Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Edward Brown here, along with Bruce McGowan. Our first trivia question. We're talking about the original movie, The Longest Yard, with Burt Reynolds, right? What middle linebacker put his head through the wall in the movie The Longest Yard just before the big game?
Well, I gotta try that, but I want to see if Matt maybe knows the answer first. Give it.
I remember the second. The remake.
The remake, okay, but this is the original from 1974.
Okay. I don't remember who the original was, but I know who the guy that put his head through the second one.
Who was it, by the way?
I think it was Bill Romanowski, wasn't it?
Okay.
It might have been.
Okay. I'm going to say Ray Nitschke.
Ray Nitschke. That's correct.
Ray Nitschke. Yeah. Well, linebackers are. Did you play any football, Matt, back in the day?
I did. Yeah, I played quarterback and played linebacker.
Well, I bet you realized this is a fun sport, but I'd rather not get hit every single time.
Yeah, I'd rather hit the little white ball as opposed to have.
We're not talking golf.
We're talking to Matt Williams, who has had quite a journey in baseball, and he's still playing. Still coaching. Might as well be playing. He was a great player back in the day, and going to be coaching with the A's this year. Of course, he was manager of the year in Washington. We're moving all around time-wise here, Matt. But you were the manager of the year in your rookie year in Washington. And ironically, you ended up losing a playoff game to the Giants, and that was quite a year for the Giants. They won their third World Championship. But that was a great team you had there in Washington. It has been for a number of years with Dusty too.
Yeah, they the minor league system is really good. They do a really nice job of developing their players, and for a long time they were kind of in the boat for a while where they were the team that got the high picks every year, and they really did a nice job with Harper and Strasburg and all the guys that they've been able to bring along and develop. So they've been a great team for a number of years. They haven't made the final step yet, but some really good teams.
Okay, I'm going to see if Bruce knows this. So we're just looking up, on our favorite Wikipedia about Matt, and he set a specific world record.
World Series record?
Yeah.
God. Yeah, I know Matt played in a couple of World Series. He played in three of them. Played with one with Cleveland. He got a ring with Arizona, and he played with the Giants in '89 in the Bay Bridge series. So,
Matt, you got to know this about yourself. What is it?
As of today, I'm the only guy that in Major League history that hit a home run in the World Series for 3 separate teams.
Exactly. That's the one I was looking for.
Well, that's a cool stat.
It just means I was on really good teams.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned you were on Cleveland for only about 1 year, and that was a different kind of a team because I mean Cleveland had some great years in the mid and late '90s. But what was it that got you to Arizona? Did they just was it a perfect trade for them? I can't remember the circumstances. Did you leave as free?
I had an issue with family, and I was I had full custody of my kids.
Oh yeah.
So I wasn't going to move them to Cleveland.
Yeah.
So I requested a trade from a World Series team to an expansion team, and it was kind of a weird decision at the time. But it actually worked out in the end because I got to win a World Series ring. So, but that's why I was only there for that 1 year.
And Bob Brenly was your manager, and of course he was a catcher with those. We mentioned back in our first segment about Brenly was one of the guys who was on that '87 Hum Baby Giant team and the '89 team. He came back and played. And Bob Brenly, like yourself, Matt, is a baseball lifer, like Mike Krukow, like a lot of these guys. Chili Davis is still coaching. What does it take though to be a good manager, a good communicator? I mean, obviously you have to appreciate the sport and understand the mentality, but there's more to it than that.
Well, we all love the grind of it, right? So that people can shy away from the 30 games of spring training, all of the work that goes into all the pre-work in spring training, 162 games, and then hopefully a whole bunch of playoff games. But I love the grind of it. I love the challenge of every day walking out there and then doing your best to win that particular game. And you reset it when you're all over, and you do it again the next day. The unique part about baseball. So we all love that. I love that. And, guys like Chili that grind in that community every day. It's a thankless job because the hitting coach gets no credit unless there's something that happens where one of the guys goes into slump and they talk to the hitting coach.
Well, they did do a lot on Puig though in the World Series. They kept focusing on his hitting coach.
Yeah, so it's like so the coaching is better, and you don't necessarily do it physically, but you have all these experiences that you have over the course of a career, 30 years now, and so you can add a nugget here or there to help a guy understand or get better as a player, and ultimately that's the gratification. You choose to be a big league coach. There's only 30 people in the world that can do I'm going to do, and so that's fulfilling. Get a chance to help young, talented players fulfill their dreams as well. So it's a lot of fun.
So, Matt, how do you like for you who have been a manager and now are going back to being a third base coach? We're a first base coach also. How do you deal with internally? Let's say if you start looking at the decisions the manager's making that you disagree with, how do you work that?
Every manager has his own philosophy. So part of the job of the coaching staff is to get on board with that philosophy. No, Bob. We were teammates.
He's talking about Bob Melvin now, who's the manager of the A's. Yeah.
No, he was the bench coach on the World Series team here in Arizona under Bob Brenly. So I've worked with him in spring training. I've been his teammate. I watched him manage from afar. I think he's a brilliant manager. He is calm. He's cool. His guys respect him. The team is a young, fiery, exciting team with a lot of talent that can improve immensely. So all of those things go into it. And I'm at the direction of the manager. Whatever he wants to do, then I support that mission, and we move forward and try to win that particular game that day, and then look forward to the day of the next one. So he trusts me. When we talked about coming to the team, he said I want you to come and be part of it, and I jumped at the chance because I respect him.
It's interesting watching the World Series, again, as a fan, watching on TV and seeing Dave Roberts just seem to make decisions that were just frustrating as as a fan watching, going, you know, why are you leaving this pitcher into so long, and why are you taking that guy out so quickly? You know.
Well, if the decisions don't work out, it always happens. It always happens that way. I mean,
yeah, but sometimes it's like a guy. I hate the idea of, well, this guy's always the setup guy. This guy is always going to close, and it's like if a guy,
if it works for you, but here's the point: if it works for you, and that's the formula, I mean, you do have to vary that a little bit. But Matt, I think that's the hardest part, isn't it? You know, a manager always has to be second guessed, not only by those of us in the media, because we have to be delicate in the way we phrase our questions, but certainly by the fans.
Well, yeah, it's part of the job, right? It comes with the territory.
Yeah.
But just know that any manager that makes a decision, that decision is based on a lot of thought prior. It's based on sabermetrics. It's based on thought. It's based on feel. It's based on knowing your guys that are on your team. It's based on trust. It's based on a lot of things. So it's just not flipping a coin and saying, we're going to bring that guy. It's all planned out. It's all predetermined. If you get in these situations, who's the best man? If he hangs a pitch and the guy hits it over the fence, there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you have to sometimes think a couple of games ahead, you know, especially if you're in like game one of the World Series. But if you have a setup man and he's just mowing guys down, is it, you know, what's the reasoning behind just, you know, oh, well, no, we got to yank him out because it's time to bring the closer in?
Well, you know, the idea behind it is that you have your team dynamic set it up to win. Now, again, it's all determined by how well those guys do on the field. Because, you know, once you hand them the ball, it's up to them to throw the ball and catch the ball and hit the ball. But all of the decisions that are made are very important ones to the dynamic of the team and the formula by which you look at winning that particular baseball game. And you know, hey, when it's two teams left and nobody else is playing and everybody's watching and something doesn't work, people start to talk.
Oh yeah.
Well, yeah, I like what Mickey said in Rocky. There ain't no tomorrow. You know, sometimes you have to give it today.
What?
It's like you guys watch football this last week?
Oh God, yeah. Yeah.
So the fake punt in the Seahawks game.
Yeah.
Or the fake field goal.
Big field goal, yeah, right before the half.
And what did he say afterward? Well, it was a great idea if it worked.
Yeah.
So that's the epitome of being a head coach, being a manager. You decide on you're going to do something. If it works, you're a genius. If not, you get second.
Yeah, boy, Atlanta's coach was ready for that one. That was a big play in the game. Hey, before we let you go, Matt, I got to ask you, because we're talking about baseball and strategy and being a manager, but the essence of baseball to me is the guys, the stories, and the people that you played with. And you played with so many distinct personalities, and I know you had a great time down in Arizona. That, to me, that Arizona team of 2001,
that was great.
Yeah, lightning in a bottle. I mean, they were a good team to begin with, but you guys played the Yankees in an emotional series.
Yeah, right after September 11th.
Right after September 11th, a lot of people wanted the Yankees to win because it was for New York, but you guys were the sort of the forgotten team, but not by those of us who covered baseball. What was it like playing with? Tell us a little story about playing with that 2001 Diamondbacks.
It was a collection of guys that hadn't gotten to the pinnacle, that were running that's the way I can put it. Some guys played playoff games, some guys actually played in World Series games, but very few of the guys that were on that team had actually had success, the ultimate success. So it was older guys that knew what to do. Bob Brenly let us go. He let us play with his direction. And then, it doesn't hurt when you've got Randy Johnson and Kurt Schilling at the top of your rotation. But nonetheless, it was a collection of guys that didn't have much time left. That year in spring training, they all decided that this was going to be the year that it happened. And, it was an amazing process, because from day one of spring training through the last game at Banquet Ballpark at that point, the focus and the mission was to win every single day and do whatever we could do to win that game that night. That's the only way really that you're ever going to get to the pinnacle of the sport and win the World Series, and that's having everybody on the same end of the rope pulling as hard as they can.
Yeah. Well, what a great career you've had and continued success to you, Matt. It's been such a pleasure.
Thanks again, Matt.
And we're going to try to catch up with you once the regular season starts with the A's. Good luck with that young team. They're going to really benefit from your knowledge, I know.
Yeah, I'll see you guys when we get up there, and thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks again, Matt.
Okay, you got it.
Okay.
One of a kind, good guy, and you can see why he's such a fan favorite.
Oh, yeah.
He just does his job and sort of old-fashioned work ethic.
Yeah,
Matt Williams.
Hopefully the A's will increase their salary.
Not until they get a new ballpark. Yeah, they're not going to do anything. There's going to be a holding pattern until they get that new ballpark, whenever that is, 2023 maybe.
Is that what it is?
Oh yeah,
Maybe they'll do it during the Raiders in Las Vegas.
No,
a little too hot for that.
No. Not going to go to Las Vegas.
Okay, here we go. The trivia question. Okay, again, we're talking the original movie, The Longest Yard.
Right.
And we're talking football players who played in that movie. Who played for the Rams for 13 seasons, protecting Robin Gabriel and Pat Hayden, and starred with Burt Reynolds in the movie The Longest Yard?
Okay.
All right, that's our trivia question. Don't touch that dial, because Sports Econ 101 will be right back with some closing comments. Okay. So what I did was I knew he was going to go on too long, so I recorded segment 4.
Okay.
And we'll go back and do segment. I'll show you.
Okay, no problem. I'm easy.
Yeah. So if we didn't have heartbreaks, it'd be so much easier.
What's that?
If we didn't have heartbreaks, yeah.
Well, you got.
So it's like you with your 2-minute thing. It's like, oh, sorry.
It drives me up the wall. I'm looking at the clock and I'm realizing I got 3 more stories to do, but I can't do them. So what I do is I tease. I say, we'll talk about that coming up next.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a different audience.
Yeah.
We just had a merger, CBS got bought by Intercom. CBS.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So, but the good news is, I think Intercom isn't gonna. They realize what they got. They're not CBS, but they're also they own the game.
Oh yeah.
So
95.7.
Yeah. So they're moving in with us. So we'll have 6 stations now. Alice, 101, ACBS, AM and FM, and one other station. Too much consolidation in our business. It's screwing. It's just destroying it. But there's too much diversity in media, so audience is just not there anymore.
That's what happens.
Yeah, I'm just going to try to hang in there for a few more years. Got to. I don't have a choice. Yeah.
You got to.
I got to.
Okay, hold on here. This. All right. What do you want to cover?
So we have a whole segment, right?
Yeah, we have 11:37.
Okay. Let's think about that here. We can little NFL. How about that?
Sure.
It's the NFL, and it'll tie in with our trivia question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. One more time, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Bruce McGowan. Now, we had to let Matt go, but he's going to join us again in the next segment.
Right. Gotcha. So Matt had a pressing engagement, but it's nice. We'll get him back in just a few minutes.
Exactly.
It's like the problem when you're talking to people on the phone at their office. Sometimes they have to take a break, and
it happens.
A client comes in, or
at least he answered the phone the first time.
Yeah.
That's important.
There you go.
Only one time did we have a guy forget.
Oh yeah.
And he was an older gentleman, so
Yeah.
we'll give him a little grace on that.
There you go.
Okay, here was our trivia question. We're talking the original movie, The Longest Yard, and we're talking NFL players who played in that movie.
Okay.
Here was the question. Who played for the Rams for 13 seasons, protecting Robin Gabriel and Pat Hayden, and starred with Burt Reynolds in the movie The Longest Yard?
Well, I know Fred Dryden was a fine movie actor, but he was a defensive player, so he wouldn't have been.
Fred Dryer? Yeah.
Not Fred Dryer. Rosie Greer? No, because he played. He was a defensive player. Must have been an offensive lineman. Who the heck could have it been? Tom Mack.
Yes, that's who it was.
Tom Mack? Seriously?
Yeah. That's
Wow.
right.
Yeah, Tom Mack was a terrific. For those that don't know, because offensive linemen are sort of the forgotten heroes. They're really the foundation of a team's success. But I don't know if he's Hall of Famer or not, but he was a 3 or 4 time All-Pro back in the 70s and 60s actually too. So we're going back a few years.
Well, the movie was 1974, so you got to figure that it was in the 60s. Like Ray Nitschke.
Oh yeah, Ray Nitschke. God almighty. Well, I'm dating myself here. That was the year I graduated from college. That was the year that Richard Nixon resigned. That was the year that the A's won their 3rd World Series championship, and that was the year that I first got my first taste of working in the media. I got to cover the Warriors when they won the championship that year for a little newspaper. Right out of college, it wasn't much of a job; it was just a part-time job. But
It's a good start, though.
Yeah, I didn't. I got into radio shortly after that, but I started as a writer. So you know, do what you got to do.
And at that time, the Giants and the 49ers were not very good.
Not very good, but the Raiders were.
Oh yeah,
they were terrific. That was, you know, maybe one of the best Raider teams of all time was '74. But they won the incredible game against Miami, dethroned the two-time champions, and then they lost to the Steelers, who won the first of their 4 championships. The Steelers were actually
that was
74. No, 74. Believe me, trust me. I know.
Okay. What was the 1972?
72 was the Franco Harris.
Yeah.
That was that. The Steelers didn't go to the Super Bowl that year. They were knocked out by the Miami Dolphins, who were undefeated.
Oh, yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, gotcha.
But the Raiders had the best team that year, but the Steelers, in the fourth quarter, the Steelers completely dominated the Raiders. And the Raiders only, I think, rushed for something like 30 yards in that game. I mean, the Steel Curtain defense was just awesome. And I was at that game as a fan. So disappointing because they had won this emotionally, you know, uplifting, incredible win over the Dolphins and dethroned them in the final seconds the week before. And then they lost to the Steelers, who went on to win 4 Super Bowls.
Well, and was that the Super Bowl that they beat the Vikings?
They clobbered the Vikings.
Yeah, because the Vikings, Chuck Foreman only got like, they only wrestled for like 40 yards.
Steel Curtain defense, you know, you had Joe Green and Holmes and Ham and Lambert and Mel Blunt, and you know, God, that was a great team. They just, you know, I'm thinking about today's football. Yeah, Dwight White, L.C. Greenwood. I mean, some of those guys.
It's amazing how we could name all those guys.
Well, we were younger then. They had more of an impact. I'm looking at football today. The quality of the game, of the play, is as good as ever. These athletes are as good as ever. But the problem is there's just rampant mediocrity. There are only a handful of really good teams like the Patriots and the Eagles, and there are only a handful of really bad teams like the 49ers and Cleveland. And everybody else is kind of in the middle, which makes it fun for the fans. I mean, if you're a fan of the Raiders, they're 4-6, but they're still in the playoff picture. Yeah, that's ridiculous.
But I think, too, again, because the game has changed from the standpoint of penalties, you know, what you can and can't do. There was I think it was against the Raiders this last weekend where he barely got touched.
Well, they're much more conscious of, you know, the hits because of all the damage that's been done for many, many years. We all who follow football knew this. And sadly, it's part of the game. It's like when you go in the boxing ring, you're not going to go in the boxing ring thinking, oh, yeah, I'm going to live a long life if I do this for 20 years. No.
I say go back to football where they no helmets or anything.
You're the modern-day gladiators. Well, in those days, the guys only weighed 180 pounds. They didn't weigh 270 pounds.
That's true.
But the whole thing about the injuries in football has nothing to do with it has, you know, a lot to do with injuries to knees and arms and legs and so on, but it's the constant stop-start motion of your brain sloshing in the skull. That's what creates a concussion. I've had a couple of concussions, and they're very, you know, debilitating. And if you have, some of these players have 12, 13, 14, 17, 24 concussions,
and they're wearing helmets.
Well, it's because it has nothing to do with being hurt with your brain, with your skull being hit. It's the brain sits in fluid and it sloshes around. And I mean, it shouldn't slosh around, but it does. When you hit something, you stop, start. You know, that's where you run into trouble. And that is the primary thing about football is hitting people, and they're never going to be able to take CTE out of football. So all these sorry excuses for penalties that are being called are just a cosmetic way to say, oh, we're trying to protect the player. No, they're not.
Well, no,
they're not protecting the players.
Well, one thing I can see about protecting the quarterback from late hits isn't as much the CTE as it is, you know, they hurt a shoulder and then they're out there.
Yeah, you want to keep, because how many teams have 2 good quarterbacks?
Exactly.
You know, if you're lucky, if you got 1 good one, and look at Minnesota, for instance. The other day, who was the guy? Case Keenum, who was a journeyman who played with the Rams last year. He's filling in for Teddy Bridgewater, who's hurt, and Bridgewater's probably the long-term guy. But Keenum goes out and has a old team. So what do you do the next week? Well, you stay with a hot quarterback. You don't bring back the young kid who's fighting off an injury problem. You stay with a hot quarterback. They're in a good position, Minnesota. They're lucky, and they may go far in the postseason.
Yeah, I mean, as a football fan, it is kind of frustrating when you see a good quarterback go down.
Oh, no
and
question.
then it's like, you know, the game kind of seems to suffer.
Well, look what happened to Derek Carr last year. The Raiders went in the tank after that. They didn't go in the tank. I mean, they got to the playoffs, but they had to throw a rookie in a quarterback, you know, in a playoff game on the road. You think you're going to win with that kind of a situation?
Unless it's Frank Reich. Remember that?
Frank Reich.
Remember that?
You know what's great about Frank Reich? I believe he's coaching somewhere in college.
Okay.
I think in college. Yeah, for those that don't know who Frank Reich is, 1991, he stepped in and took over and engineered one of the greatest comebacks in playoff history. And it was an amazing win for the Buffalo Bills. And I'm trying to remember.
Houston Oilers.
Houston Oilers.
Yeah, I was rooted by Warren Moon. I was really rooting for the Oilers. And
I remember.
You know what it was? It was their defensive back.
Yeah.
Just kept getting burned.
Yeah.
And they didn't, he just wouldn't back up. And they also just didn't put a new player in.
Yeah. Well, maybe they didn't have a choice. You know, here's the thing about football. When you find a weakness, you're just going to exploit the heck out of it. It's just like the military. When you find a weakness in that line, you're going to go bust through it. And football and the military, strategy, very similar. A lot of similarities there. But it's a great sport. Despite all of its problems, and, I'm not a big fan of Roger Goodell. I can't stand Jerry Jones, although Jerry Jones, for all his faults, and he's had a lot of them, has been good for the game in the sense that he brings a lot of attention to the sport, positive and negative. But some of it, I've gotten to talk to him a few times. He's not a terrible person. He's just a little full of himself, kind of like our president. But that's that's a different story. So
well, that's your opinion.
That's my opinion, and I'm staying with it. Yeah. Anyway, I mean, some people just have to have the attention all the time, like the little kid who raises his hand in class. Hey, pick me. Jerry Jones is that way. Jerry Jones never met a TV camera he didn't like. I can tell you that. He loves being interviewed. And we got to get him on sometime, seriously. We got to get Jerry Jones on. He would come on.
Enough. I don't know him personally.
No.
If you do.
Well, I don't know him personally either, but I can guarantee you this. He has not turned down an interview that as long as you want to talk some football. That's his thing. And we could love to talk. He's not a genius as far as understanding the game, but he understands the business of football. Yeah. And I think you'd find it interesting because you do a business show. So
exactly.
Yeah.
And we're always nice to our guests, no matter who they are.
That's right.
And if you can get El Presidente Trump on, it'll be nice to him too. Because we're not political here.
I'm sure he'd be a very interesting interview.
Yeah, would be. Especially
if he let his guard down and stopped tweeting all the time.
Yeah, it's like, when does he work? He's always tweeting all the time.
I know.
Well, if you remember the old USFL, when he took on the
that's
NFL,
right. Yeah.
He won $1.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's right. Well, I wonder if Melania's ever around because he's always tweeting. She's never in the White House enough. He's just, he's wandering around tweeting all the time.
I remember.
I was told I have to tweet in my work, but I never do. So anyway, sorry.
Yeah, I don't know how to tweet.
Yeah.
I fluff a lot, but I don't know how to tweet. So, it's interesting how, from a legal standpoint, I'm not an attorney, but I'll just kind of give my 2 cents here. A lot of times what happens is that it's not so much that, the guy only won $1, but sometimes contracts have in there that the winning party gets their legal fees taken care of. So even if you win $1, you still might at least get $1 million.
Is that right? Because the legal fees.
Yeah, that's why it's really important for them sometimes to say, no, we're going to appeal this, even if it's $1.
Yeah.
Just for that reason.
Interesting. There's a lot about business and the law that I have no idea about. Just a cursory knowledge of both, but you're the expert there. So I'll always defer to you.
Thank you. Again, I'm not an attorney, and I'm not giving any legal advice. Please discuss this with your attorney. That's our disclosure here.
I'm just an old baseball, football, basketball, broadcast, radio, newspaper journalist.
You always keep yourself clean, so you never have to worry about any of that legal stuff.
You know what I do is I go surfing, I go hiking, and I just say I'm living a great life. I've been doing this for 43 years and working with you, and we're just on the side. It's a blast. So we're having a good time.
We are having a good time.
And I hope everybody out there who's listening is having a great holiday season.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I hope this is airing after Thanksgiving, so everyone had a great Thanksgiving.
Including our servicemen who may be listening overseas.
Yes.
On the Armed Forces Radio.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we never mention those guys. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, we really do appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay, here's our other trivia question we're going to ask here. Again, we're talking about the movie The Longest Yard and football players who played in it. In the 2005 version, this is the remake with Adam Sandler. Okay.
Oh,
what 2 former NFL linebackers played prison guards?
Oh, that's a good one.
So you had to see the.
That's
the
a good one. Yeah.
All right. Don't touch that dial. Sports Econ 101 will be right back, and Matt Williams will join us. All right. This is the first time I've ever had that.
Oh, I didn't realize. I remember you mentioned it.
So this one's number 3.
Okay. So the good news about Willie is he knows he's put it down in his calendar, so he knows. Okay. And Bitcoin will be a piece of cake too. Yeah. Well, yesterday I went to work and we depend a lot on our cable TV to record Sports Center and games, take highlights and things.
Yeah.
And get this, our little TV is off to the side of the newsroom. It looks like the same TV as everybody else has, but it's on a different, it's a different company or a different, and they forgot to pay the bill. So they turned it off. So we had no TV all day yesterday. And I was scrambling. Luckily, there wasn't a huge amount of stuff going on. I was able to get the Monday night. I was able to get the Monday night football game off another TV, play some highlights. But it was wow.
Now, who told you it would have to do with the bill?
Kevin Radich and also Steve Bittker. I'm like,
really?
Yeah.
I mean, because you wonder if that's maybe just sort of a
no,
joke.
no. It's one of those things. Unfortunately, it doesn't usually happen, but things slip through the cracks sometimes.
That's funny.
That's one of those things that slips through.
And then
well,
also, we
sports
usually give you a warning though too.
Yeah, but sports is we're just we're not an afterthought, but we're just sort of obligatory. We got 2 minutes at 15 and 45. That's all. KCBS is news.
Yeah,
they have to do the sports because that's part of the format, but it's not a priority. So.
All right, so we'll do our last segment, and then we'll do the first.
Gotcha.
Segment.
Okay. Gotcha.
For the people on YouTube, it's all convoluted. I understand. That's okay.
No big deal.
At least for the radio show, though, it'll be perfect because I'll send them 1, 2, 3, 4,
There you
5.
go. There you go.
Okay, here we
All
go.
right.
Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Last time for today, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Bruce McGowan. Third and final trivia question was, in the 2005 version of the movie The Longest Yard, that's the one with Adam Sandler,
Right.
Michael Irvin, by the way, was in there.
Michael Irvin was in there for the Cowboys.
He's actually a very good actor.
Yeah, he's a good broadcaster. He's a character. He's got a lot of personality. Yeah.
Okay, so what 2 former NFL linebackers played prison guards?
I did not see but a little bit of this movie, so I'm not even going to try to guess on that.
Okay, so our guest, Matt Williams, did guess correctly one of the linebackers.
Oh, he mentioned, who was it?
When he put his head through the
Bill Romanowski.
Bill Romanowski.
Yeah, who I had the pleasure of working with a couple of seasons, and before that covering with the Oakland Raiders. Bill's quite a character. He's a great guy.
Yeah, he's into nutrition stuff now.
He's a big time, and he's he's got 4 Super Bowl rings. He's played 5 Super Bowls, 2 with the Niners, 2 with the Broncos, and 1 with the Raiders. Yeah. The only one he didn't win was
That's
the Raiders.
right, against Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
The other one was Brian Bosworth.
Brian Bosworth, who had a great college career, but the enduring image of him is getting run over by Bo Jackson.
Bo Jackson, yeah, kind of crazy.
Yeah.
All right, so here's our thoughts for the day. It always seems impossible until it's done. That's true. And you were born with the ability to change someone's life. Don't ever waste it. I knew you'd like that one.
Good advice.
I like that.
Good advice.
All right. Let's see here. So, real quickly on Brian Bosworth, that guy was smart enough to buy a disability insurance policy. And when he got both of his shoulders hurt, he couldn't play football anymore. I think he got paid like $5 million.
Best thing for Brian Bosworth, he got out of football at the age, I think, of 26. And he's probably, he's going to have some shoulder problems, but I don't think he's going to have the kind of brain problems that, say, a poor guy like, remember the New England Patriots guy who hung himself in his cell?
Hernandez.
Hernandez,
Yeah.
They looked at his brain and they found out that he had just been so damaged by CTE. This was why he went off.
I mean, I can see it's the linebackers. I mean, they seem to be.
Well, he was tight end, but they get a lot. They get in a lot of contact, and it's everybody's brain is different. Everybody's physiology is different.
All right, tune in next week to Sports Econ 101. We're going to be discussing sports topics from a business perspective.
That was a sobering note. I'm sorry.
Sports trivia questions. Thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm your host Edward Brown. We'll see you next week.
Good night, America.
So long.
All right.
All right, so now we got to do our
introduction. That's right. Yeah.
So this is number 5.
Right. Well, I'm so glad you're doing this here. So Baker will be good, and Willie Brown will be good. 2 very outspoken guys.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to have Willie on
Tuesday and Wednesday, I believe we go, right? Is that it?
Yes.
Okay.
Let me just double check. I believe that is correct. Tuesday and Thursday.
Tuesday and Thursday.
Tuesday and Thursday.
Okay.
So this one was 5. I remember the last time I did this and I messed it up. I'd say, well, number 3 is really number 2. And I mean,
Well, there's 4 years, 4 plus years, 4.5 years to do this thing.
amazing.
Gotta use those Alcatraz things this holiday.
You got to use them after January 1st.
Oh, after
That's-
January.
yeah,
Okay.
that's
No big deal. No problem.
Okay.
We'll use our, you know what we used before that is the brazen head. I haven't done that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, their fruit is really good. Have you
I
ever
know. But a bunch of times when I was living in the city, I used to get that there probably
Oh,
half a dozen
steak.
times.
I mean, this food is really good. I really liked it. Okay, here we go.
Okay.
Well, welcome to Sports Econ 101, the show where we discuss sports topics from a business perspective. I'm your host, Edward Brown, along with my co-host, Bruce McGowan, longtime sports radio personality. Now, today's show is going to be special. Who's going to be our guest coming on?
We got a guy that I've known for many, many years. We're not friends, but we're good acquaintances, and that is the former 5-time All-Star, 4-time Gold Glover, and he won a World Series ring in Arizona, now the third base coach of the A's, former American League, or I should say National League, Manager of the Year with the Washington Nationals, Matt Williams is going to join us, so that's going to be a lot of fun.
Did he also win an MVP?
Not with the Giants. I'm trying to remember if he won one with Cleveland. He did play with the, you know, it's interesting. He only played with Cleveland 1 year. It was right after he was traded to the tribe from the Giants for Jeff Kent and 3 other players. But I don't think he won it that year, although he certainly could have.
Yeah.
That was a great team.
Yeah, I have to go look back at it. Yeah, I was impressed because that was the year they lost to Atlanta.
No, that was the year they lost to
Florida Marlins.
Florida Marlins. They lost to Atlanta in 95. 95, yeah.
That's right. Boy,
Atlanta's only World Series that they won.
Yeah.
They were like 6 of them or 5.
I never liked them. I think it was because I hated that.
Bobby Cox is a great manager, but Atlanta's not a great baseball town. Never has been. And with all due respect, Houston, I love your Houston Astros, but not a great baseball town. Maybe because they never had a great team. Now maybe there will be a good baseball team.
That's true. Well, yeah, it's fun rooting for them.
Yeah, that was a great World Series.
All right. Yeah, I definitely enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Okay, this segment of Sports Econ 101 is sponsored by Pacific Private Money, still providing mortgage investments that are currently yielding about 7 3/4% secured by real estate. Doesn't get any more conservative than that. You got to check them out at pacificprivatemoney.com. Also, they have a new website called privatemoneyloans.com where you can just go on there and take a look at some of the loans and decide if you want to invest in them.
I try not to get loans for anything, but if I'm going to do a loan, I'll take your advice. I'll go to them. How's that sound?
Yeah, well, first they're plan B. First you want to go to the bank. Yeah, because they're more expensive than the bank. So typically you go to the bank or a mortgage broker. This is more for people who want to invest and earn a good rate.
You're gonna have to educate me, man. You know, I went to school with a bunch of guys who were business majors, and it just went over my head.
Okay. All right, don't touch that dial. Sports Econ 101. We'll be right back.
That's true, though. I was in a fraternity for a year with all guys who were in accounting and marketing and hotel restaurant management. Great bunch of guys from all over the country. But I did